Welcome to KOH Korean class. This time, we're gonna see what the counting units are and how to use them. As I told you in the last video, you need to add the counting units to the number when you count something in Korean. And there are some exceptions. You don't use the counting units in counting. We'll see this at the end of this video. So how does this work? Every being in Korean language is assigned to its own counting units. So beings can be classified by the units. That's why the counting units are also called classifiers. English has something similar as well, like a cup of water. Here, a cup of can be the counting unit for water. But the only difference between Korean and English is that in Korean, you almost always need the counting units when you count something. Alright then, let's say the most frequently used counting units. First of all, 명 for humans, 마리 for animals, 개 for non-human, non-animal stuffs. So if you want to say 3 students, it's 학생 3명. You see, the being comes first, and the number follows it, and the counting unit comes to the last position. And there's no plural marker like the S in students in English. The Korean plural marker 들 is not obligatory like in English. In many cases, it's better not to use it. So here, both a student and students are 학생. For 6 cats, you need to say like 고양이 6마리. And for 1 apple, 사과 1개. The being, the number, and the counting unit. That's the order. But here, you may have found it. The 3 and the 1 is somehow different from what we learned last time. Yes, there are 5 numbers losing their last sound before a counting unit. Those are 하나, 둘, 셋, 넷, 스물. And they become 한, 두, 세, 네, 스무. Like 남자 2명. 다람쥐 4마리, 딸기 20개. The numbers have lost their last sound when followed by counting units. Except for them, all the other numbers preserve their old sound whenever they are placed. We just have learned 3 counting units, but there are hundreds of counting units like this. So, do we need to memorize all the things? No, of course not. Some of them are not used so often. 명, 마리, 개 would be the most commonly used counting units. I think the 3 are quite enough for a Korean language beginner. If you are an ambitious beginner, you can try to memorize the next frequently used units. 병 for bottles, 잔 for cups, 권 for books, 조각 for pieces of something, 대 for machines or electronics, 그루 for trees, 장 for papers. Now you can say the number of things properly, but there are 2 number systems in Korean, the native and the Sino-Korean. So how can you tell when to use the native Korean numbers and when to use the Sino-Korean numbers? Some counting units are biased for one of the number systems. For example, the counting unit for hours, 시, uses the native Korean system. In contrast, minutes, 분, only uses the Sino-Korean system. So this is read as 10시 10분. But the units we have learned today are not biased, so you need to decide what to use depending on the number itself. For numbers over 100, only the Sino-Korean numbers are used. So for the numbers, there's no choice but to use the Sino-Korean system. And for under 20, in almost 90%, the native Korean numbers are used, so you can use the system without hesitation. Then what matters is from 21 to 99. It really depends on specific situations, so here I cannot generalize it with confidence, but I can recommend you a heuristic. You can think 40 is a borderline. For 21 to 40, you can use both of them. But in more cases, the native Korean is preferred. And for over 40, the Sino-Korean is preferred. So you can say like 맥주 한 병 and 맥주 50병, 책 4권, 책 85권. So simply put, before 40, it's better to use the native Korean numbers. And after 40, the Sino-Korean is better. Okay, so we're done with the counting units. But I told you that there are some exceptions you don't use the counting units. There are two most useful cases. One is for small numbers. When you count something in a very small number, like less than 10, usually 1, 2, or 3, you can say it in the sequence of the thing and the number in native Korean system. For example, you can say like 학생 셋 for 3 students, 고양이 둘, 2 cats, 사과 하나, 1 apple. Here you can see the numbers having their all sounds because they are not followed by any counting unit. You can use this type of counting when you buy something from a shopkeeper or you order something in a restaurant. Here you can say like 비빔밥 하나 주세요 to order 1 bibimbap. And the other is for ages of a person. There are counting units for ages like 살 or 세. But after ages of teenager, the bare number is also used quite frequently. Let's see some titles of Korean dramas. Here the title just says 17, 25, 21, 39. They're just saying numbers, right? But Korean people can notice these titles are saying about ages, not any others, because the bare numbers are so frequently used for ages. Alright, so now you can count something in Korean. Let's summarize it. There are 2 number systems, the native and the Sino-Korean. And you need a proper counting unit such as 명, 마리, 개 when you count something. 5 numbers, 하나, 둘, 셋, 넷, 스물, lose their last sound when they come before a counting unit and become 한, 두, 세, 네, 스무. There are units biased for one number system, but in many units there's no bias. So the number 40 could be a borderline to decide which system you use. And there are some exceptions where you use no counting unit. Okay, so thank you for watching my video about Korean language. And if you found it helpful, please like it and subscribe my channel for more videos about Korean. So, see you!